Hey, what's up, everybody? Video 44 coming at you. Another video. All right, so we're talking about the Orlando Magic and the Detroit Pistons in their Eastern Conference first round series. Starts on 4/19, which is Sunday. Excuse me, which is tomorrow from when I'm recording this. 3:30 p.m. Pacific, 6:30 Eastern in Detroit. And Orlando shocked the heck out of me. I didn't think they would beat Charlotte, but I learned a hard lesson. Can't look at the previous two games and think you're going to predict what's going to happen in the next game based on that. Guys change their mentality, and matchups and styles of fight can tell the story. And that is exactly what happened with the Orlando Magic and the Charlotte Hornets. They played horrible against the Boston Celtics to end the season and then proceeded to play really bad against the 76ers, but then ran into a Charlotte team and beat them by like a million points. So, what this tells me is this is a very inconsistent Orlando team. And that's coming into Detroit. The number one seed, although Eastern Conference pretty much an entire season. And, the Pistons are just a juggernaut of a contender with all different types of components to their roster that make for them to be a very complete team. This is a very resilient unit who survived being one of the worst teams in the history of the sport just 2 seasons ago. Starting the season off basically losing 90% of their games. This same core of people have now turned it around full circle and are the best team in the Eastern Conference. So some of those guys who were part of that team, Ausar Thompson, Isaiah Stewart, Ron Holland, I think, probably was drafted the year after that. Tobias Harris, I think it was in Philly that year or something like that. Jalen Duren, Cade Cunningham, that core, they went through that. And they make up some of the best players of this team right now. What I see here is a team that the difference between this roster and that roster is shooting. Kevin Huerter is now part of this team. Tobias Harris is now part of this team. Chris LeVert, Chaz Lanier, Duncan Robinson. They needed spacing. They went and got it. And so that's what the difference was. You always knew that Ausar Thompson and Duren and Cade were going to be able to, do good things in this league. The question was what was surrounding them. They didn't have any spacing that year. And as a result, they were being crowded out, and it just didn't make for a cohesive basketball team. Plus, those guys were still developing to a degree. They had yet to become who they've become now. Jalen Duren coming off an all-star season. Cade Cunningham, MVP candidate. Ausar Thompson has been struggling with injuries here and there, but ultimately he's starting to put it together. And Isaiah Stewart is now a respected role player who is an enforcer for this already beefy ball club full of athletes and bruisers, taking on that old Detroit identity where they play physical basketball every night. This is a team in Orlando that's going to be able to meet them there with that, because those Orlando Magic, they are also a bunch of bruising guys. Paolo Banchero, 6'10", 250. Goga Batazde, 6'11", 250. Anthony Black's a point guard at 6'7", defensive-minded. Jamal Cain, 6'7", long arms. Wendell Carter, 6'10", 270. Jonathan Isaac, 6'10", 230. Noah Penda is a 6'7" wing. Jalen Suggs played football as their point guard. He's basically a bruiser and a defensive-minded player. Franz Wagner, 6'10", 220. Mo Wagner, 6'11", 245. They got Colin Castleton, who's 6'10", 250, even though I don't expect him to get too many minutes. You got Tristan Da Silva, who's 6'8". Jet Howard, 6'8". You see what I'm getting at here? This is a big team. Massive team. And a good majority of who they're going to have on the floor is going to be able to do that. And then you got Desmond Bane, who is a sniper of a guard at 6'6", 215. Not very long arms, to say the least, but barely misses and has basically been carrying their offense while they've struggled. So this is going to be a bruising series, man. And I've learned to understand that the Magic, with Franz Wagner now in a position to not have minutes restriction, is going to have a big roster on the floor more so than what we've been assessing as of late. I think that their coach understands that the rumors are that he's going to be fired as soon as this thing ends. So he's fighting for his career, hoping that he can win enough playoff games to put some doubt in that, or carry his team into a space where it's impossible to fire him. That's what he would hope at this point. Some of these guys, Paolo Banchero's been drugged through the mud. He's playing some of the worst ball of his career. I didn't even think he looked that great against Charlotte, to be honest with you. I really didn't. He's going to have to work his way through that slump, and he's going to have to make good decisions and just try to, study the tape from the last couple of games where he's played poorly and try not to duplicate any of those mistakes. Try to find his way, because if he's at his best, Orlando is a fantastic team. If he's not, they're struggling. And so Franz Wagner, conditioning is everything for him. Jalen Suggs contributing to the scoring is everything for him. And the rest of this roster just has to continue doing what they're doing. Wendell Carter's looked very good as of late. Anthony Black is coming back from injury, and is a big part of what's going on. He's had a breakout season this year on both sides of the floor. He's really started to contribute to some scoring. His three-point shooting has improved. So I expect for him to have a big role now that he's slowly but surely coming back from injury and starting to get his legs under his wind back with him. Goga Batazde is an enforcer. Him and Beef Stew, I'm sure, are going to get into it at some point in this series. Just wait on that. And, this is going to be the battle of bigs, man. It's going to be the battle of bigs. I think the best player in this series is obviously on the Detroit side with Cade Cunningham. But this isn't necessarily a series that Detroit wants to play in the first round. When you've won the number one seed, you would like to play against a team that doesn't necessarily have the same identity and physical profile that you do as a bruiser. You would hope to play against a team that you could push around, that you could bully, and you could push over. Charlotte was a team like that Detroit, the way Charlotte looked against Orlando, they'd have been able to push the team around. I said something earlier in the season, and I said I didn't think Detroit wanted to play Charlotte. Now that I've seen Charlotte against a physical Orlando team, I was totally wrong. I just don't believe that anymore. Detroit would have had a good time beating up on Charlotte. So they are not going to be able to necessarily beat up on Orlando. That's what it really comes down to. And I think this series may be a bit uncomfortable for both teams. Obviously, Detroit being as talented as they are. But the thing about, the Detroit Pistons is that they're not the most durable bunch. That's what I'm concerned about. If they have the fullness of everything that they are used to on the floor, I don't think that this is going to go Orlando's way. But I need to know where Cunningham is in his conditioning. I need to know that Asur Thompson is going to play every game in this series. I need to know that Isaiah Stewart's going to play every game in this series. So that's what I'm looking at there. That's a little concerning. Danish Jenkins is a wild card player that his ceiling is really high at this point, in my opinion. He could be a starting guard in this league. He played amazing ball while Cade Cunningham was out, especially against my Lakers, where he basically led the team to a win there against us. In a time where the Lakers weren't losing to anybody, we lost to them. They're absolutely legitimate with or without Cade Cunningham. They've proven that they could play well without him. But when it comes to the playoffs, particularly going up against a bruising ball club that has that identity, where do you find your edge? Asur Thompson, he's going to have to deal with players like Anthony Black and Jonathan Isaac, who are kind of going to do some of the similar things that he does. Maybe not at the athletic level that he does, but it's not like he's just going to be able to take nights off in the areas that he's good at in order for his team to be successful. It's a style of play that is concerning a bit. Ron Harlan's going to have a big role. I expect for him to get into it with some people as well. He tends to have a hot head, and his identity is that of somebody who doesn't mind getting under your skin and is easy to get under his skin as well. Short-tempered. Jalen Duren is where things start to separate, because Although I like Wendell Carter and the idea of Bataz Day and Wendell coming together to make things difficult, Jalen Duren is just a different specimen of human being, man. Only 22 years old, made an all-star team this year. Super buff, 250, all muscle. He's just a different level, I think, and he makes the difference. If he's out there wreaking havoc on the offensive glass, which he's one of the best offensive rebounders on the planet, he's turned himself into a really solid free throw shooter, which is interesting. And he's dunking everything. So I just don't know that he's not the real difference for the Detroit Pistons. Outside of Kate Cunningham, of course, again, best player on the floor by a long shot. I don't know how they're going to deal with him specifically. And then just the shooting of the Detroit Pistons is really interesting to me. I think they have more talented shooting overall. When you're talking about Kevin Huerter and Duncan Robinson, people that are just put down there for that reason. Tobias Harris is a big deal. He played for the Orlando Magic for a long stint of time, so this is a homecoming for him. He should want to play extremely well against this team. It should be emotional to a degree for him going up against them in the playoffs. Yeah, that's something to think about. What else? Detroit displays a strong brand of basketball. Caris LeVert is a veteran who's going to have a big playoffs here if he's going to continue to be able to keep his career going. This is a big series for him. Duncan Robinson has to hit shots. Marcus Sasser, a young 6'1" guard, he's going to have any advantage some of the time down there with what his matchup will be. At times it's going to be, incumbent upon maybe the Orlando Magic to keep one of their elite defensive players on the floor because he's going to cook whoever else is out there. If he don't have Black or Suggs on him, it could be a long night for whoever they put on him. So that's going to be interesting there. See if he can impose his will with the minutes given. To see if he and Danius Jenkins are actually going to make an impact in the series or if coach is going to opt to go in different directions because there are a lot of options. The Detroit Pistons just have a really well-rounded roster. Javonte Green is one of those dirty work guys. I didn't realize he was 32 years of age. He certainly doesn't play like it. But he's going to be an important piece out there defensively, also enforcing that physical nature of the Detroit Pistons. So keep an eye open for 31, Javonte Green. He's had a really good year for their team. Who else? There's another name that I was thinking about. I don't see him on here. But, just overall, this is a very, very talented Detroit Piston team. Picking up Kevin Huerter at the deadline brought them significantly more shooting. He can make a little bit, steal the ball some in his prime. So he should be ready to contribute. They're going to need him to play well in this series. You would expect that just the brand of basketball that Detroit plays, they should be able to overcome the Orlando Magic. But I think that the matchups are a bit concerning. If Orlando's going to play like they did last night, you would expect they're going to be able to be physical enough to create some real problems for the Detroit Pistons certain nights, especially when the series shifts back to Orlando. But I've seen Orlando struggle so much in such drastic ways that I'm hesitant to have faith in them at this point. Not only that, but I think that the coaching situation is a bit iffy. As we mentioned, he's probably going to be fired. He has had trouble putting the players on the floor that help his team. He has talent. I just don't think he's been using it very well. Guys like Tristan Da Silva, Noah Penda, Jace Richardson, Jet Howard, they just haven't been utilized. Young players that need opportunities to develop, they're not getting those opportunities enough, in my opinion. Tristan Da Silva has proven he can really be a nice wing. If they can get him on the floor at any given time, that would be helpful. But I think that's not really the coach's fault so much as to say that this roster is just over-compounded with the same position of players over and over again. You just got forwards at every great position they got. You got Paolo at the forward. You got Franz at the forward. You got Mo at the forward. You got Noah at the forward. You got Jonathan Isaac forward. Tristan Da Silva forward. Jamal Cain forward. At some point in time, you got to realize Paolo Banchero's a forward. You need all of these people on the floor at the same time to get the most out of your roster. It's not possible. You just can't, the GM brought them too many damn of the same thing, too many damn forwards. And so if you're able to, within your system, have some of those forwards play different positions, you might be able to get the full, dose of your best stuff on the floor at one given moment. But I don't think their coach has been able to he's not been able to do that. He hasn't been able to effectively accomplish that for whatever reason. And they need to find someone down here who can do that, or they need to shuffle some things around so that this roster makes more sense. And so they weren't ousted by the Charlotte Hornets, so they're not as inclined as maybe they would have if they would have gotten embarrassed to end the season. Now they get to go into the series where they do match up pretty well with Detroit, and it may incline them to think that they're on the right track if they have any type of success in the series. I think that's fool's gold. I think that this roster needs to be shaken up in order for them to have the long-term success that they ultimately want with this timeline. And so I don't think that the Detroit Pistons roster is going to have some of the same struggles that the Orlando Magic roster is going to have. They're obviously in opposite spots. Orlando's in the 8th, Detroit's in the 1st spot. And I think the main reason that is because of roster construction differences. One roster is structured with a bit more balance after making certain mistakes in the past that we've already discussed that led them to being the worst team in the world. They understood the importance of getting the stuff that they needed to make everything come together. Detroit's still in that space where they have yet to do so and need to start that process. So it's just two teams in two very different spots. And then the number one overall pick for both of these teams are in two very different places in their career. Paolo Banchero looks like he needs to develop a lot. Cade Cunningham looks like he's ready to win an MVP. So that's the difference as well. If Cade Cunningham comes in having shown no ill effects from the rib or lung injury that he suffered just a month ago, then you would expect that he's going to be able to close out each and every one of these basketball games. Regardless of what's going on throughout the course of the game, if it's close enough down the stretch, it's going to be him against them, and he's going to win each and every one of those games. That's what you expect. But it don't have to play out that way, especially now that the Orlando Magic have a full dose of minutes of Franz Wagner. He could be a difference maker down there, helping that. If he steps up and is their best player, he can help Desmond Bane score enough points to carry this team against this tough Detroit defense. But I'll tell you this, the Orlando Magic against the Charlotte Hornets played some of the best defense I've seen all season from really anybody. What they did yesterday to the Charlotte Hornets was so devastating, and they were so locked in defensively that they looked like NBA championship level defense. They really did. I don't know that I should look at that to say, okay, they were playing against Charlotte, and maybe there's something to take away from that because of it. But Charlotte has been one of the best offenses, particularly floor spacing offenses, in the league. So it's not like they beat up on some slouches offensively at all. Charlotte was one of the more respected offensive teams in the league this year. So if Orlando can carry over that mentality, show that version of themselves more so in this series than maybe they had been able to throughout the course of the season, I think they give themselves a chance at a tremendous upset here. Because they have the size, they have the physical nature to match up with Detroit more so than most teams in the Eastern Conference. You have the Jalen Suggs, you have the Jonathan Isaacs and the Anthony Blacks and Goga Batazes, guys who are going to be physical. Tristan Da Silva defensively. They have them on this team to be physical enough to rough up some of those Detroit guys, as to where Detroit, with their beef stews and Jalen Durans and Nasir Thompsons, would be looking to do that to others. This could be a situation where if Detroit plays their best physical ball and Orlando plays their best physical ball, some nights Orlando's just going to be better at it than Detroit. I think they have more bruisers on this roster than Detroit does right now. More bruisers on the floor and more of the time. So The shooters of the Detroit Pistons are going to have to hit shots at a consistent rate. You need the high level of the Marcus Sasser and Dennis Jenkins pieces to really hold leads and extend leads when Castleton, excuse me, not Castleton, when Cunningham sits down, and that's going to be the story. If they get outplayed by the others of the Orlando Magic, if guys like Jamal Cain and Javon Carter are having great series against Detroit, this series goes another way. They need pieces like that to not be better than the pieces they're using. That's what it really comes down to. People like who else? Mo Wagner. They can't be better than Marcus Sasser, for example. They can't be better than Caris LeVert. You know what I mean? That's what it really comes down to. We need the others of the Detroit Pistons to flex against the others of the Orlando Magic. And sometimes in Magic rotations make it so that some of their more productive lineups are their bench units. So that's going to be an interesting dynamic as well. Do those second units of Detroit tend to get outplayed at times and give up leads? Because it might be possible. It might be possible. So I think this team, Detroit, should expect to be successful because Cade Cunningham is far and away the most talented player on the basketball floor. That's one thing. And they do have the Jalen Duren piece and the Isaiah Stewarts and Javonte Greens and Ron Hollins should be looking to be physical out there. Paul Reed was the name I was looking for earlier. B-Ball Paul. He's another guy I like on this Detroit team. Forward, 6'9", 210. Very, very talented player. Showed us some things when guys were out, as he always does in every situation. B-Ball Paul is a baller, so I expect for him, with minutes given, to play great, and this series would be a big one for him as well. So yeah, man, this is a Detroit team that is better than Orlando. I don't think anybody's gonna argue with that, but Orlando does bring a certain identity to this series that takes away Detroit's edge for being able to bully. And a big part of what made Detroit as good as they were this season was their ability to bully everybody. So I think this series is going to be more interesting than maybe we would like it to be if you're going for Detroit. But I still have Detroit winning the series. I think Detroit probably wins the series in probably 5. I think they win it in 5. But I think there are going to be some close games. That's what I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be some close games, but I just have concern about Orlando being able to close them out. Some of the turnover issues, P5, bad shooting, that type of stuff. If that's going to be something that occurs out there, I just think Cade Cunningham is going to run past them dudes. He's going to eat them up, put up these big triple-double, 40-point triple-double, stuff like that he's capable of doing. And I don't think they're going to really have an answer for that. But keep an eye open for Anthony Black, because he's going to be very important in defending Cade Cunningham, and he is a more than capable perimeter defender. More than capable. So if he starts to get the better of Cade Cunningham, let's say Cade Cunningham's having some issues with his conditioning, and Anthony Black is given an opportunity to defend him, there are going to be times where Anthony Black's going to be able to get the stop. There are going to be times. Not many, but I think the best bet Orlando has of guarding Cade Cunningham is with Anthony Black, who I believe is bigger than Cade Cunningham. I'm not certain that I have to look at this, but I think he's a bigger person. 6'7", 200 pounds. Anthony Black, 6'6", 220. So Cade got some weight on him, but he's taller than Cade. So that's going to be their best chance of a matchup there. That's their best chance of a matchup defensively, in my opinion. So, yeah, man, that's really what it is. You know, Detroit's significantly more talented, more balance of a roster, probably better coached. But Orlando does pose some serious physical problems that just going to make it so that Detroit's going to have to find other ways of winning than bullying this team. And they're going to have to withstand the punishment that team pushes out. And if they have injury issues, could change the tide on this series. Cade can't go down. Jalen Duren can't go down. You see what I'm saying? It's going to make it so that suddenly Orlando's then going to be able to bully this team and turn the tides on them, in my opinion. So that's the thing. Isaiah Stewart, Jalen Duren, Javonte Green, Paul Reed, Ron Holland, they're going to have to push. They're going to have to really push against a team that is capable of pushing back. And if for some reason they don't hold up, You're talking about a massive upset. So, I don't think that happens. I'm putting my money on Cade Cunningham. Detroit Pistons at 5. BDF 44. Thank y'all for watching.